Hey everybody, welcome back to another Mysidia Post video. My name's Alex, and today we're covering my Ice Water Final Fantasy VI list featuring Realm and some monsters. I also have some gameplay footage of me playing this deck on Octagon. The video's in the description, so please check that out if you're interested in seeing how the deck actually runs. Before we get into the deck tech though, let's just shout out all my patrons. Thank you so much for your continued support, and make sure you check out my social media links, Mysidia on Twitter and Mysidia Post on Facebook, and then please consider subscribing to the channel and liking the video. Alright, let's take a look at the list. It's going to be a little different than what you're used to seeing because the deck actually has no summons in it. The main feature of this deck is being able to play a bunch of monsters, and we use Realm to play those from your deck. We then use Gao to recur those, and we support that with a strong FF6 package that includes Lock to make your opponent discard. The other package in the deck is kind of a spread damage package. We have a bunch of different cards that are going to do AoE damage on multiple forwards to be able to clear your opponent's board easily. This allows us to set up slowly if we need to, so that we can come back from behind against aggro, but it also can be a very aggressive deck. If you play a turn 2 Realm and into a Buckaboo or other monsters like Goblin, then you can very quickly put a lot of pressure on your opponent, especially if you drew Lock. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at that 6 package. So the 6 cards in the deck are Realm, Ultros, Gao, Terra, and Lock, and then for the backups we have Strago, Castalian Empire Cid, and Setzer. So Strago is purely in the deck to add 6 characters so that Lock can discard more easily. He's a 2 CP water backup that's 6. That's just important on its own. We can't actually use his action ability. Otherwise, we have Castalian Empire Cid and Setzer both at 3 ofs, and that's very important because we want to be able to search Realm early. We want to be able to search your Lock early, and we want to be able to follow up and find Gao to replay some of our monsters. Setzer allows us to also grab things for specials from the break zone, including Lock and Terra, to use their easy to cast specials. It grabs stuff that we don't want to play early, like Ultros back, and it even lets us replay things like Gao and Realm. So Setzer is an incredibly important backup in this deck, and then Castalian Empire Cid just fills in all of our holes. Next, we can take a look at another package that's just as important in this deck, and that is going to be our monster package. So Realm and Gao are our main forwards that are powering this package, and we have a selection of monsters to be able to use Realm's ability effectively. So for Realm, she comes in and searches a monster of cost 2 and a monster of cost 1 and plays them directly onto the field. The cost 1 monsters that we're running are Goblin and Flan. Now, Goblin is just the one of, but it's incredibly potent. It's going to be able to give a lot of important forwards haste in this deck, the most important being Lock, because when Lock is able to deal damage to your opponent, you can actually make them discard. Another forward that's going to be very important is Ultros, because he's a little bit slow with his on-swing ability, which is to do AoE damage to your opponent's field. Having a Goblin down and then playing Ultros enables your board clear combos very, very easily. So Goblin's definitely an important monster in this deck. Flan is also super important because it allows us to follow up on discard like Lock and Buckaboo to keep your opponent's hand down. We can also use Flan to search more copies of itself to gain extra CP, and that CP is going to be important because we're going to use it to combo off with our board clear combos. So it's definitely a needed monster at the 1 CP mark. Then we have Tonberries, and Tonberries is at a 1 of as well. Tonberries is super important for, again, comboing with all of our different board clears, but also just for forcing some bad trades in combat for our opponent, because they don't want to block Lock and die, but they also don't want to discard. So Tonberry is really good. And keep in mind, with low counts of monsters in this deck, you can recur them with Gao. So just because you have 1 Goblin in your deck doesn't mean you're just playing it that 1 time in this match. Then we have one of Buckaboo again. So once you've searched this card once, you've played it, it's in your break zone after it goes off, and then Gao can recur it. You don't need more than one. And Buckaboo is a really good early search to just take your opponent out of control of the match. They're going to have to discard a lot, and you're not. Usually the drawback with Buckaboo is that he costs the amount that your opponent's discarding. So he's a card, and you might have to pitch a card to play him or pay 2 CP to play him from your backups. So you're actually losing the value just as your opponent is. Relm kind of cuts out that disadvantage and makes Buckaboo a lot more playable. So he's a pretty huge part of this deck as well. And then finally, the linchpin of this deck is Cleone. And Cleone cancels summons and draws you a card. It's important to know that Cleone has 2 abilities. When Cleone leaves the field, draw 1 card. When Cleone is put from the field to the break zone. So that means even if they use removal on Cleone, you're still going to draw a card, which is very important. Your opponent not being able to cast summons is going to put them in a really tricky position, and it's going to allow you to get on board more easily and prevent against board clears. It's also going to protect things like Kadash that can only be targeted during your turn when he's on the field. It's going to be really hard for your opponent to interact with something on your turn if they can't cast summons at it. So Cleone is probably one of your highest priorities for Relm and definitely for Gao, but it depends on the match. Sometimes you'll want to get Buckaboo out first with that first search. I like to do Goblin Buckaboo and then go into my other monsters if I am able to play Relm again, or if not, then you'll draw Cleone, hopefully, because we have her at 3 of. So moving on to our second themed package in this deck. So we've had our main 2 things that we're doing again are the monsters, and then now the board clear, and then the 6 package supports all of that. So let's talk a little bit about our AoE damage package. So in this we have Ultros, and when Ultros attacks, he can deal 2 to 4k damage to all your opponent's forwards. We have Cagnazzo that is able to do power reduction to all your opponent's forwards. We have Barthandelus that will do damage to your opponent's forwards, 2 of them. It's going to be 2k from killing them. So with Barthandelus, Ultros, Cagnazzo, and Terra automatically, and Tonberries, they can all fulfill that 2k. So with any combination of these cards is going to be able to get you a board clear. Terra does 4,000 damage to 2 dull forwards, which again combos with all the aforementioned cards, but Terra also has a special magic charge. Terra gains, Terra deals damage to a forward this turn, it's double. So if you have an extra copy of Terra, you can magic charge to do 8,000 damage to a forward. And that is pretty powerful. And then all of these cards, you can Scholar them back to your hand, play them again with Scholar. You can play them again with Rinoa. So it's a really solid package, and you have so many different ways to be able to play these cards with each other. Any combination of them is going to work. The best combination is Ultros and any of the other cards, because Ultros is already on the field and his ability doesn't cost you anything. It's just attacking. It's much easier to pull that off as it requires less CP. As soon as you start mixing Barthandelus with Rinoa or Terra, that's an 8 CP combo. Cagnazzo is a lot easier to play because he's odd costed at 3. But with Cagnazzo, there's a reason why we don't play very many ice backups in this deck. You want to be at least 3 water backups, and you want to be at 2 ice backups, because when Cagnazzo hits the field, you want him to do at least minus 2k power to your opponent's forwards, if not more, to combo well with Barthandelus. Okay, so taking a look at the list here, we've kind of covered the main part of the entire deck, and we can look at some of our numbers here. We're going for consistency with our packages, which is why we've got 3 Ultros, 3 Terras, 3 Barthandelus, etc. But moving on, we have some support cards that we might see at some lower numbers. So in this deck, we run a few other cards, including Kadash, who is just a good card. Like I said, with Cleone, he becomes very difficult to remove, and I actually got that idea from Stephen Riley from St. Louis, so thanks, Stephen. And then on our backup line, we've added things like Merle Web. Merle Web is just a solid EX burst and a good way to fix your draws and just to kind of dig through your deck if you have doubles. And similarly, Artemisian allows you to put doubles back into your deck. It also lets you put monsters back into your deck. If you draw way too many monsters at the beginning of the match, you can put them back into your deck so that Realm can grab them from there. I got that idea from Phil, so thank you, Phil. And then finally, there's my 4 package, and it's actually really huge. So you have your backup Cecil, who has an okay ability. He's fine. But then you have the Opus 11 Rosa, who draws a card if Cecil's on the field. So that's an EX burst draw card if you've played Cecil, which is huge. It's just a really nice way, again, to dig through your deck and find all of your answers, which is really important when you're playing a combo deck. You have to be able to find your combo pieces. She also has an action ability: discard 1 card, draw 1 card. You can only use this ability during your turn and only once per turn. So this allows you to cycle through cards you don't want to hopefully find those combo pieces, so you can pull off some major board clears. So while you might look at this initially and say, Alex, you're just playing 4 cards, no, this is a really good combo for this deck specifically. Okay, so looking at the full list, we've covered everything now. It's pretty straightforward. We're really just going for those 2 strategies, and we're supporting it with the 6 stuff and some other cards, but there are some other options of cards that you can put in this list if you were interested. So possible additions: Nickel is a really solid way to combo off with all of those AoE damages that we were talking about. The issue is that he's harder to fulfill because he's 4 cost, unlike Cagnazzo, and you have to have those water backups down. So he's a little bit trickier to play. I actually ended up cutting him for Kadaj, although if you watch the videos, I have my gameplay videos, the old version of the deck's in there, so Nickel is in the videos, and he does see some play. Sid Waff is also a strong contender for a deck slot. I do not run him because I am trying so hard to play as many water backups as possible, but Sid Waff is massive. He's a 2 CP ice backup that can replay literally every single monster in this deck, which is obviously very, very strong, and I could not fault you at all if you thought he was a must-have in this deck. I am personally trying to do it a different way, so that's why I have not included him in the list. And that's going to be it for the deck tech. So it's pretty straightforward. You just want to play a couple backups. If you can play a turn 2 Realm, that's great. Turn 2 Realm into a Goblin and a Buckaboo. Otherwise, you can try to get your Cleone out if you're a little more established, and then you want to start finding Lock to make your opponent discard. And at that point, if you have Lock, if you have Realm, you search your Gao, and you are trying to recur some of the monsters that you've already used, especially if your opponent has lots of cards in hand. If you recur a Buckaboo, that can be pretty stressful for them. And then once you've kind of progressed in the game and you want to push through to win the game, then you have your copious amount of board clears that you can use in order to crush your opponent. Or if you'll see in the gameplay videos that I have, if you're getting just hammered by aggro decks, you can take a lot of damage, build up your hand, and you can combo back with your board clears to basically do a 180 and start attacking them back and win the game that way. And then it's all from there. It's pretty straightforward. So I hope you enjoyed the deck tech, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I want to know if you've tried out this deck, if you have different ideas, and just in general, have you tried out Realm, and what do you think? Because she's pretty strong. But that's going to be it from me, so thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for watching this video. You can check out my articles at themysidiapost.com and support my Patreon at patreon.com/themysidiapost. Please be sure to check out cardsofevilise.com for all your FFTCG singles and product needs. I also want to thank FF Decks for creating a fantastic site that we use every day. Until next time, keep it real, Mysidians.